یاد علی کو آیا ہے بازار شام مصلی پر، رو رو کے علی کیوں لیتے ہیں زینب کا نام مصلی پر، اور خون جاری تھا زخمی سر سے، روتے تھے نمازی صف میں کھڑے، خون جاری تھا زخمی سر سے، روتے تھے نمازی صف میں کھڑے، ارے کس طرح حسن نے رو رو کر کی فجر تمام مصلی پر، رو رو کے علی کیوں لیتے ہیں زینب کا نام مصلی پر، یہ پہلی فجر ہے زینب کی، سجدے میں سکون ملتا ہی نہیں، یہ پہلی فجر ہے زینب کی، سجدے میں سکون ملتا ہی نہیں، دل ڈوبتا ہے آتا ہی نہیں، ایک پل آرام مصلی پر، رو رو کے علی کیوں لیتے ہیں زینب کا نام مصلی پر، رو رو کے علی کیوں لیتے ہیں زینب کا نام مصلی پر، صلی علی محمد و آل محمد۔ سورة مباركة الفاتحة۔
Just a reminder again for those of you who have arrived slightly later, there'll be an extended Amal program tonight after Iftar, and we'll be doing all the du'as and supplications for the night of Qadr, so please stay on if you can. Without any further delay, please could you recite aloud salawat to welcome the Shaykh up to the minbar.
We can recite Surah Al-Fatiha for the following marhumeen, for Sayyid Muhammad Ahmed Naqwi and for all of the marhumeen. We also have many people who are ill in our community. There is an auntie who has an operation which is coming. We also have another auntie from the community by the name of Sayyida Ismat, and also for Hadi, the son of Sheikh Muhammad Al-Hilli, for all of the sick people around the community. If we can recite 5 times the following dua together, please. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعا ويكشف السوء 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 صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. For the love of the commander of the faithful, Ali ibn Abi Talib, please one loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين سيدنا الممجد بشير المصدق المصطفى الأمجد محمود الأحمد أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة الله على الظالمين من الأولين والآخرين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولتكن منكم أمة يدعون إلى الخير ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر وأولئك هم المفلحون. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Awaited Savior of humanity, Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, my respected teachers, elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On this sad night in which we are remembering the martyrdom anniversary of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, our condolences go out to the Master and Lord of our age, the awaited Savior of humanity, Imam al-Mahdi, ajjalallahu ta'ala faraj al-sharif. And our condolences go out to all of our maraji' and to all of the mu'mineen and mu'minat around the world, and indeed to the whole of humanity, for the martyrdom anniversary of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam is a martyrdom that the whole of humanity can commemorate in. Our discussions regarding a contemporary theory of tabligh and da'wah. Tonight, inshallah, we will address the question of how to bridge the gap between those people whom we might have a very real disagreement with. In our previous discussions, we have looked at why da'wah and tabligh is obligatory upon us. We have also looked at how the circumstances of the Holy Prophet of Islam differed from the city of Mecca to Medina, and so gives us an understanding of the relativity when we also employ our theories of tabligh and da'wah. We've stated that the two pillars of calling others towards our faith and exporting our faith to others is primarily, number one, establishing the belief in God, and number two, doing so through good akhlaq, through good character and good mannerisms. Yesterday we spoke about the importance of not calling people to my personal interpretation of faith, because my personal understanding of faith is potentially as wayward as anyone else's understanding of faith. And the moment I try to present my own understanding of my religion and try to press upon others, really I'm not calling towards Islam in the proper sense. I'm really calling towards myself and my own understanding of religion. And it is so easy to dismiss anyone else's belief, and therefore for someone else it is just as easy to have my belief dismissed. Rather, we need to be able to understand the Quran, memorize ayat and ahadith, and through that we would call based upon what the divine sources say, through calling towards. Tonight we want to address the question, when we have people who will vehemently disagree with us, who will have a completely opposite understanding of life, purpose of life, how then do I call those individuals towards me? Now, because this is a contemporary theory of tabligh and da'wah, we want to at least point towards certain contemporary challenges that we have. And we're going to be relating two in particular. The first one is around the issue of LGBTQ rights, and also the issue around RSE, which we know is relationship and sex education. Many of us will know that from August of next year, there will be a new syllabus that is forced onto people in the UK, whereby they will have to learn in schools relationship and sex education, which has been written by the LGBTQ lobby. This has concerned many Muslims and non-Muslims. And so the rise of the LGBTQ issue has come to the Muslim community, and instead of us being able to ignore it, which really we have done for such a long time, it is now in the forefront of the dialogue that we need to have. As we stated in a previous night, it is very difficult for us to be able to talk about this for a number of reasons. Often the pulpit is scared to be able to broach this subject. Why? Because the moment someone says something from the pulpit, we know the Daily Mail, the Sun, the right, the left, they all want to be able to jump on the video, make a clip about it, and make the imam, make the alim, make the shuyukh look out to be an extremist individual. This is a concern that they have. Also, because the moment we want to be able to talk about this issue, it feels like that we're impinging on other people's rights. And so the moment you talk about God and sin, the moment you talk about rights and punishment, immediately another set of people become very offended by that. And you're living in two different levels of thinking. One person, when they talk about freedom, when you and I talk about freedom, we don't mean freedom to do what we like. We mean freedom from everything else other than God. We want to free ourselves of every chain, every shackle, every evil desire, every greed, and learn to be free from all of that so that we really arrive at God. This is the real meaning of Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. That there is no other deity, no other idol that I worship. The only one true God is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when you have another person who comes from a completely different set of thinkings or a different standard of ideas that says, no, I am free. Free in what sense? Free to do as I like. Free to make myself happy. I'm not hurting you. Why are you getting involved in my personal lifestyle? If I want to do this act on the street, what difference does it make to you? So we have to ask about this question of how to bridge the gap when it comes to certain thinking like this. Also, one of the other challenges that we have in our time is not just the rise of the LGBTQ issue in question, it is also the issue of the rise of the far right. And so Muslims are placed the central problem of social order. Migrants are placed at the problem within social order. And so when the far right want to be able to scapegoat Muslims, they are able to bring any particular issue they want. And as an outcome, we end up not knowing how to be able to navigate some of these questions. Sometimes a far right person, when they debate, will pick on any issue in order to prove that Islam is terrorism or Islam is inherently violent, and so on and so forth. So for example, at 1 minute, you'll find that they argue, well, Saudi Arabia does X, or Pakistan does X, or Afghanistan does X, or the Quran mentions Y, or the Hadith says X. Which standard of debate are you speaking about? If you're asking me to condemn Islam on the basis of what happens within Saudi Arabia, this is not the standard by which to debate through. When you and I are often faced with so many different mindsets and ideas, we have to be able to create a theory of how to be able to debate with people, how to be able to bridge the gap of divide that exists between us when we sit down with other ideals, other ideologies, other people. And this will be the question that we start with tonight, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Be honest with yourself. To what extent have you ever left a belief system or a particular belief that you have deeply held as true? How many people here have ever left their own faith or their own sect? How many people here have left anything that they truly believe to be true and been convinced by someone else? I imagine the vast majority of people here have never left their own belief system. And as a result, it is very difficult to imagine someone else leaving their own belief system for you and your own argumentation. But sometimes a little bit of intellectual honesty helps us to be able to understand how difficult it is to convince another person of something that you believe in. I imagine to even ask you to leave your football team, that will be impossible. Sometimes football is above faith in God anyway. But in that question, you can see how difficult it is to ask someone to change what they believe in and to be believing in something else. How do we bridge that gap when we speak to other people? The first issue is that we have to realize that when we speak to people, we come from completely different epistemologies. What is an epistemology? An epistemology is that thing which surveys truth, surveys knowledge. It asks you, why do you believe something is true? What do you believe is truth? How do you believe something creates your understanding of what is truth and what is false? So for example, you might say, science is what I believe in to become true. Another person will say, I believe the Quran to be true. Another person might say, I believe in Kitab al-Kafi to be truth. Another person will say, I believe in Sahih al-Bukhari to be true. When our starting positions of what is true and not true, what is moral and immoral are so different from one to another, it becomes very difficult for us to be able to navigate and to bridge the gap that exists between us. If, for example, your starting point on what is truth is the Quran, and another person's starting truth is the Bible, I know that we're speaking hot topics here, but I didn't expect it to be that hot that it sets off the fire alarm. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If your starting point of truth is the Quran and another person's starting point is the truth is the Bible, it is so difficult for us to be able to bridge the gap that exists between us. Now here I want to imagine that I'm sitting in front of a very diverse audience and I'm going to throw a certain question to certain people. Hands up here, how many people are doctors? Hands up so we can all see. MashaAllah, it's quite a lot of you. Yeah? I'm going to throw an ethical question to you. You don't have to answer, because I know that if you answer it, your GMC license might be put at risk. But I'm going to ask the question nonetheless. Would you ever lie to a patient? Would you lie to a patient in order to cure them? Would you tell them something which is false because they won't take a cure, they won't take the medicine? Would you lie to them in order to get them cured? And one person might say yes, another person might say no. One person might say yes and say, well, actually, the means here is in the end. Yeah, I'm telling a lie, but I need to be able to cure the person. My job as a doctor is to cure the person. Another person who starts from a different moral perspective will say, how can I lie? A person has autonomy, has choice. If they don't want to take a medicine, who am I to force them into taking a medicine? I cannot cure them. I cannot act justly upon them if I'm going to start with a lie. Can you see? Two different moral starting points. You will have two different outcomes. Sometimes the issue is not what we believe in or the moral system that we adhere to. Sometimes the divide that we have to cross might be the language that we use. And the way in which I say something, you may not fully understand it. I may have said something I think is communicable. I think you've understood what I've meant to get across. but you may not understand it in the way in which I've understood it. Hands up here, how many of you are business men and women? Hands up, who's a businessman here? Who owns their own business? My God, less of you than doctors. I expected it to be the other way around. In the Khawaja community, we tend to all be business people. Here, maybe in this community, it tends to be the opposite way around. More pharmacists, more dentists, more doctors. There's a few of you who are scattered here are businessmen and women. Imagine now I said to you as business people, I said, I want to see growth in the business. Go and achieve growth for me. One person might say, great, how do I interpret the word growth? And they will go off and they will say, I want to get more revenue. That's what Ja'far meant. Another person will say, I want more profit. That's what Ja'far meant. Another person will say, growth is determined by market share. I need to go and get a bigger market share, from 3% to 5% market share. Another person will say, what he means by growth is that the team grows. In which way? Numbers, skill sets. You can see I'm using an ambiguous word, isn't it? The more different people there are in front of me, the more you will have interpreted the word growth differently. When we sit and we speak with people, we have to realize that sometimes their source information is going to be different, like the Quran or the Bible, like Sahih al-Bukhari against Kitab al-Kafi. Sometimes when we sit and we speak with people, we have to understand that the morality, the moral system of ethics that they bring is going to be very different. And sometimes the language that we use may not be able to assist us, because the way in which they understand a word may be different to the way in which I've understood a particular word. Now here, we also have a third problem that we have to be able to identify. And that is, often when people learn, many of us, we don't just do our own learning, we end up learning through other people, and because we take other people's understandings to be what is gospel, what is truth, we end up taking that particular thing that someone else believes in to be truth for me. We're going to show you some verses, inshallah, and we're going to skip one verse to the second slide, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in chapter number 22, Surah Al-Hajj, verses 3 to 4. In fact, the opening 20 verses of Surah Al-Hajj speak about epistemology. Where do you get your belief from? Whom do you follow for your belief systems? And what are the outcomes of that belief system? Now here, we can mention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about this particular issue, and He says the following. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يُجَادِلُ فِي اللَّهِ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ وَيَتَّبِعُ كُلَّ شَيْطَانٍ مُرِيدٍ. And amongst mankind, so now this is an example. Whoever takes for him a friend, meaning if you take that person as a friend. So you take which person? You take the person himself who has no knowledge, and that person who has no knowledge, where does he get his knowledge from? Every rebellious Satan. He just follows everyone and everyone. Every rebellious Satan that comes and tells him something, he follows. If you take that second person as being a friend, what happens? He shall lead you astray and make it that you end up in the burning fire. So here you have three levels of people. Kulli type of rebellious Satan, the person who then follows those types of people, and then me or you who may follow that person who follows every type of Satan. People get their knowledge from? Ultimately, if I was following that second person, I'm getting my knowledge from every rebellious Satan. You can see here the domino effect that is taking place. Now here, there's an interesting theory of psychology that needs to be understood, that when we talk to people, the reality is, even when I'm trying to convince you of an idea from the pulpit, any alim, any dhakir, any muallima, anyone who comes and speaks, he or she, I'm trying to convince you of an idea that I've researched. The reality is that none of us learn on our own. We all learn in group thinking. We all take from other people. And so really the fullness of us is so much built on how much we have learnt and heard from other people. This is a challenge that we have to come to when we cross the divide, when we try to bridge the gap between whom we are speaking with. We're going to play a short 3-minute clip, and you'll see now that actually when we end up learning things, reason as to why we end up learning the way in which we do is our mind is trained not just to learn on our own, but it is more trained and developed to learn through other people. So we export our thinking out to other people. There was one particular psychologist that did a test, and he extrapolated over a 70-year lifespan how much we take in, how much memory do we have. And it came out to be 1 gigabyte's worth of memory. How much is 1 gigabyte? We have a lot of experts here in IT. Is that a lot or is that little? It's tiny, isn't it? You can go and buy 16 gigabytes, 32 gigabytes for £10, £15 in a flash drive. In terms of what we learn and what we keep in, we only end up keeping in the approximate of 1 gigabyte worth of information and memory across our lifespan of 70 years old. There's reasons for this. Human beings have developed the technique to record things. We write things down. We record it on camera. You always know that that information will be available again. If you ever bother to listen to the Majlis again because you're like, oh, what did he say? It was interesting. I want to catch that. You could just go onto YouTube and catch it again. You can just go onto Facebook and catch it again. That means that you don't have to record everything. It doesn't need to be memorized here immediately. Now here, because of this, the way the human brain works is that we often do group learning, we export our learning, and we end up looking elsewhere to give us our understanding and our resources. This is a bridge that we have to, a gap that we have to bridge when speaking to other people, to realize that often people themselves, and this is important, they cannot prove what they believe in. Really, they are regurgitating what someone else believes in and what they have heard. Let's play the video, inshallah, and then we'll expand on some of the points that have been made.
But there's also a dark side. Because we are built to so seamlessly draw on knowledge outside of our heads, we often fail to realize the limits of our own understanding. Let me tell you about a study that my colleague Stephen Sloman recently ran. He told his study participants about some new scientific discoveries that he completely made up. For instance, a kind of glowing rock. He told one group of people that scientists had not yet explained why the rocks glow. And then he asked them, how well do you understand? Unsurprisingly, they said they had no clue. This makes perfect sense. They knew nothing about the rocks. The more surprising result is what happened when he told a different group of people about the same discovery, but this time he told them that scientists had explained exactly how the rocks worked. Now, the participants claim to understand the rocks a little bit better themselves, which is kind of weird because just like the other group, they knew nothing about the rocks. It was as if the scientists' knowledge had been directly transmitted to them, even though it was never described. And it turns out that a similar thing happens when you surf the internet. Just having access to all of that information makes you feel like you know a lot more than you do. The sense of understanding is contagious. And when contagious understanding is paired with individual ignorance, it can be a toxic recipe. The danger is that I may express a strong belief because I feel like I understand. But my sense of understanding is false. It comes from those around me expressing strong beliefs because they feel like they understand. But their sense of understanding comes from those around them, and so on. Individually, none of us knows enough to tell what's true and what's false. And yet, because we feel like we're on firm ground, we don't do enough to verify. And that is how entire groups of people can come to believe things that aren't true. We can build cathedrals, but we can also build houses of cards. Now, the real tragedy occurs in how we relate to people who have different beliefs than us. We live in the illusion.
So here what we find is that we start with different levels of knowledge. We start with different levels of ethical understandings. And we also understand our language very differently. Here we also find that we end up exporting our understanding to others. And because someone else is confident in what they have said, and they have understand something fully, or we think that they've understood something fully, we draw our knowledge from that person. The problem is that person has also drawn it from someone else. And that person has also drawn it from someone else. Now, if the starting source of knowledge is strong, then the chain itself may be strong. But if the starting source of knowledge is very, very weak, and someone else is taking from that, and someone else is taking from that, and someone else is taking from that, then the outcome is the end person tends to be in a very weak position intellectually. What did the verse say that we just spoke about? We have those people who will argue about God. They don't have any knowledge. What did they do? They followed every shaitanin marid, every rebellious Satan. The warning is that if you follow that person who has followed that person, then for you, you would also be doomed as an outcome. How amazing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains this in the Quran. Now you'll see this issue comes about today. Often when you see the people in the far right and the kind of neo-Nazi rhetoric that comes around today, really there's only a regurgitation of what Tommy Robinson says. Or it's a regurgitation of what X, Y, and Z says. But they become so confident in what Tommy has said, or what Nigel Farage has said, or what Boris has said, and then it becomes a collective learning tool where they pass it on from one to another. Because the source is very weak, everything else becomes very weak as well. The same thing comes now when we come to certain debates around the LGBTQ issues. As we stated in a previous night's Majalis, God has been removed. And in the place of God is every other ideology. So now there's no such thing as sin. There's no such thing as hell and heaven. All there is what you like to do. And as so long as you are happy, then that is all that matters. You could not get to that end point unless you started with removing God in the first place. The moment you say there is no accountability, then you can do anything in which you want. If you don't believe that there's an afterlife, then what difference does it matter if you murder one person or 50 people? It doesn't matter if you export weapons to the far side of the world, because you don't have any accountability. So you have to be able to have a different starting point. How do we bridge the gap with so many different mindsets? How do we reach out to people who have different starting points in the way in which we deal with them? The Quran has a number of ways in which we need to talk about this. And also you can see through a hadith, there are also examples of how to be able to deal with this. If we go back to the slides, the very first verse that I wanted to show, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Holy Quran about the story before this. Before. Thank you very much. You'll notice that the Quran addresses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses Musa alayhi salam and gives him advice as to how to go and deal with Fir'aun. There cannot be many people who are worse than Fir'aun, correct? You can't get someone more difficult to speak to than a pharaoh or someone of a pharaonic nature. Why? Because he would say, Ana rabbukumul a'la. So when you're dealing with a degree of arrogance that says, I am God incarnate, how do you deal with such a human being? Let alone those who have taken him to be God. Let alone those who down the chain have heard that there are people who take people as Fir'aun to be God. Can you see that? Now here Musa alayhi salam is told that you should speak to Fir'aun gently. قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. Speak to him in a gentle word. Don't speak to that person in aggression. Don't speak to them in a way in which you have more arrogance than that person. That because he is arrogant, you try to be arrogant. Because he is aggressive, you are aggressive. It doesn't matter. Your starting point is that when you speak to someone of any other different ideology, your starting point from the Quran is speak to them with a gentle word. لَعَلَّهُ. Why? So that maybe يَتَذَكَّرْ. He may bring to mind. It may be that he has a moment within himself of humility. It may be that he understands what you are saying. Oh, yakhsha. Or that he may begin to fear the outcome of his own words, his own actions, the realization, the consequences of what he does. It is so often that you will find that our own community members, Shia, Sunnah, they will go and they will stand in a square to go and debate publicly. They'll go on the internet. They'll be making videos. They'll have a Facebook Live. The nonsense that comes out from people, the aggression that they have with people, the inability to have a little bit of understanding of what another human being is going through, where their starting position is in these issues, where they have built their ethical system from, where they've understood their riwayat from, which shuyukh they follow. People have no concept of being able to put themselves in other people's shoes in order to speak to them gently with a little bit of understanding. You have to realize that if you're speaking to someone who is outwardly advocating the practices of the LGBTQ community, saying that there's no problem in this action, you might be speaking to someone who doesn't even believe in sin, doesn't believe in God maybe. And for you and I to start saying, well, God says it's haram, that person, it may be that they don't even believe in the same things that you believe in. Your starting point is so different. You'll often find that the Muslim community, they end up saying, you know what? This is the punishment for homosexuality. They don't start with that particular point. It's going to push them further and further away. You have to learn to be able to speak to someone at their level of understanding. So now here, when we speak about these particular issues, I want to be able to show one or two ways to be able to meet with the mind and to be able to think about how we can bridge that gap when we speak to people, practically to be able to understand some of these points. Now, when we speak about the issue of the LGBTQ community, there are very important works that have been done and that we need to understand the RSE issue and try to bridge the gap between ourselves and other people. When we say bridge the gap, as we stated, sometimes our starting point is here, their starting point is there. If we are unable to convince someone to come to my starting point, it requires a bridging of the gap so that at least we have some mutual understanding. When we are speaking to people about the RSE issue, and I'm sure everybody here has some knowledge of the RSE issue, our starting point here in this part of the world is that we live in a secular society. A secular society means that faith is not prejudiced, not given a privileged position above any other ideology, but also that every other ideology isn't given a privileged position over any other ideology. Secular democracy means that you and I get to put forward our belief systems, and we get to put forward our arguments to be able to see which one comes out on top. What the RSE syllabus does, it has allowed for the LGBTQ lobbying community to be able to pave the way to create a syllabus and then put it into the schools and force children from the age of 4 years old all the way to 16 years old to learn relationships and sex education through the lens of how the LGBTQ community have written that. What is our response when we're speaking to teachers, when we're speaking to parents, we're speaking to governors of schools? Is this not a fundamental form of tabligh? Do we not have to be able to deal with this in the real world? We have to be able to bridge the gap between them. How do we do that? The argument is this, that we live today in a secular society, which means that no one faith, one ideology is given privilege over any other. Therefore, if this syllabus is being written by one particular community, it is therefore privileged that one community gets to express itself over any other. If you live in a truly secular society, it means that no one is privileged or everyone is privileged as equal as possible. Which means that as much as you want to be able to teach RSE through the LGBTQ lens, we as the Muslim community get to be able to have as much a say in this particular syllabus as any other person. The Christian community gets to be able to write the syllabus as much as any other person. You see, when we come and we say things that others won't understand and say things like punishment, this, it is only going to push that community away, and it is not going to allow us to be able to have a say in the field. It requires us to be able to bridge the gap. Or for example, the issue with the LGBTQ community. Why should it be a problem for us? They will ask. Why should we have a problem with these acts taking place in public? If every TV show wants to have it in front of us, what is the problem? I'm not harming anyone, they will say. There's a professor of Yale University by the name of Richard Prum. I highly recommend everybody tries to take a read of some of his views. He is a professor at Yale, but he specializes in evolutionary biology. Richard Prum has a following point, a very important argument. And in one of his books, he looks at the history and the evolution of LGBTQ practices, the evolution of the homosexual community. And he says the following. He says that if you notice the earliest examples of the LGBTQ community in history, why did they begin to practice the way in which they practiced? He said the L community, the lesbian community, practiced the way they practiced so that they would be protected from men. This is why this practice developed. Not an ordinary scholar, a Yale professor. He says from the male perspective, the reasons why males started to practice this particular act was because they wanted fluidity in sexuality. They wanted to have as many sexual partners as they wanted. And so it was for men to be able to say that we can have this partner and this partner, therefore we can have as many and any partners as many as we want. This was benefiting whom? Men. This is his works. He then goes on to a following point, which is very important. He says, if you look at this practice and the way it's going to evolve is going to affect our society. How do you then bridge the gap when you're discussing with the LGBTQ community why we think this is a sin? Why we need to be able to handle this particular issue today? Professor Richard Fromm says the following. He says, if you compare the evolutionary biological understanding of others, you'll see at the earliest time when it came to people like Darwin, Darwin's theory said that when evolution took place on the basis of looking after what was survival based, who was fittest. Each different species tried to act in a way that guaranteed their survival. His view is, fine, this may be one element. Second element is no. There are aesthetics involved. That the reason why species go towards their own species, why they pick a particular mate for their species, is because there's aesthetics, because you're attracted. He gives the example. He says, imagine there's a peacock and another peacock and another peacock. Why should one peacock go to another peacock? When the peacock's feathers come out, this shows the beauty of the peacock. It suggests within them they have stronger genes. Therefore, the aesthetics, the good-looking nature of someone or something attracts you towards that particular person. He said it's not just about survival of fittest, it is also about attraction. He then goes on to argue and prove. He says the following. He says that if attraction is a reason for why species evolve, if certain practices become attractive to one people or one community or one species, groups will evolve to practice that type of action, to become attractive to their mates. Today, we have duck face. Today, we have selfies. That's what's attractive to people. So as it becomes norm within society, more people will do it. If they dress a certain way, or have nails a certain way, or eyeliner a certain way, or we dress a certain way in tight jeans or other things, or tight tops or other things, as that becomes the form of attraction, more and more people would do it in order to keep up, and that becomes the norm of the way in which attraction comes to keep our species going. Professor Richard Fromm proposes. If now our attraction is based on same sex, if now LGBTQ practices becomes the norm within society, the outcome of that would be, according to this Yale professor, the outcome of that would be that eventually we would lose attraction to opposite gender, and the norm of attraction would only be towards male, male, female towards female. Why? Because we will develop that as the norm of what is attractive within society. This can't be the way in which our survival of our human species goes. Now, for me and you, when we end up speaking about God and sin, it is easy for me to convince you about one practice being haram because of God and sin. When you have others who are working at a different level, you have to be able to speak to them at their own level, to bridge the gap in which they are understanding things. This is why often when we try to do debates with other schools, we will say, the Bible says X about the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Or for example, Sahih Bukhari says X about Amir al-Mu'mineen. When you and I are speaking to any other community, be it the LGBTQ issue, be it the rise of the far right, be it any other sect, we have to be able to understand where they are coming from, the world that they have come from, and to remove biases and to help each other meet in the middle so that we're able to bridge the gap of understanding. Otherwise, we will only stay on two far ends away from each other. There is a hadith of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. Imam Ali alayhi salam says this so amazingly. There was a battle that Imam took place on against the Khawarij in the Battle of Nahrawan. The hadith says that Imam Ali alayhi salam is now in a one-on-one battle, a skirmish with one of the Kharijites. As the battle is raging, as they are fighting with each other, Imam with his sword knocks the sword out of the hand of the other person. At this point, you're expecting Imam to go and kill that person. The Khariji responds and says, "O Ali, I have heard the extent of your generosity is that if anyone was to ask you for something, you would never decline them. I am asking for your sword." Imam takes the sword, hands it over to the Khariji. Khariji takes the sword. He says, "You really gave me the sword? Who's going to protect you now?" Amir al-Mu'mineen points upwards and says, "Death will protect me. because I shall not die except in which it has been a time decreed for me. The Khariji drops the sword and he says, I've never heard something so powerful. I wish to be able to follow you, Ya Ali. You are my master. You are my Mawla. I want to follow you if this is how you speak. Listen to the response of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Amir al-Mu'mineen picks up his sword. With his other hand, he takes the beard of the Khariji. He holds tightly onto the beard of the Khariji and he says, oh man, don't follow me. Don't follow personalities. Follow haqq itself. Follow truth. Wherever you find truth, that's where you should follow it. Don't follow personalities. The challenge we have today in bridging the gap is exactly this. There is so much information coming from so many places. People have gathered their understandings from so many different people. Often enough, a person will not be able to defend their own belief system. Instead of asking what you believe in, ask them the simple question, why do you believe in this? And more often than not, you will find that a person cannot defend their belief. If you want to be able to discuss with them in this way, with honesty, with truth, objectively, try to be able to understand where they are coming from, and with good akhlaq, and inshallah, you and I will be able to bridge the gaps that exist between us and anyone else that we are speaking with. Tonight is the night of the 21st of Shahr Ramadan. And in these final minutes of Amir al-Mu'mineen's life, the hadith mentions that his legs are kicking in pain from one side to another. He is unable to withstand the amount of poison that is running through his body. Many people would come to the house of Ali ibn Abi Talib and wish to get a last ziyarah of Ali ibn Abi Talib. It got to a point where the amount of poison that is going through the body of Mawla has become so much that Ali ibn Abi Talib is now wavering between this world and the next. It comes to a point that Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam has to close the door and say, no more visitors. No more men can come and see Ali ibn Abi Talib in these last hours. The friends are all gathered around the house and they are crying out, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, we wish to be able to ask you one last question. We wish to be able to see you for one last moment before you depart from this world. All of the city of Kufa is mourning and crying outside the house of Ali ibn Abi Talib. One of the companions by the name of Asbagh knocks on the door. Imam al-Hasan says to him, no more. We do not allow any more of the companions to come visit. Asbagh, he insists on going into the house of Ali ibn Abi Talib. He says, no, I will not accept it. I must see my master before I die. This is the last companion to go and see Amir al-Mu'mineen. As he enters, he sees the state in which Ali ibn Abi Talib is lying in. When the yellowness of the pus has covered his face, he sits down by the bed of Amir al-Mu'mineen and he begins to weep and cry. Amir al-Mu'mineen says to him, oh my dear companion, do not cry. Do you not know that I have been promised Jannah? My time has now come. I am going to go towards paradise. He responds and says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I do not cry for you. I cry for me. Because without you, how will we survive? How will we be with ourselves after you? Where will the orphans go to? Where will the widows go to? Where will those who are oppressed run to? Because after you, who will be there to protect all of them? In the first minutes of Amir al-Mu'mineen's life, he now has to put the hands of each of the family members into the hands of Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam. It is told by our dhakireen that he places all the hands of his family members into the hands of Imam al-Hasan. But one, Abu Fadl al-Abbas's hand has not been placed. Abbas begins to cry. He says, oh my father, am I not too one of your sons? Is it not that my hand goes into the hand of Imam al-Hasan as well? He looks to him and says, no, your birth was for a different purpose. You are to be given your hand into the hand of Imam al-Hussein, my son. Your birth is there to protect Imam al-Hussein on the 10th of Muharram. Ala la'natullahi ala al-qawmi al-zalimeen. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون ماتم حسين يا حسين ماتم علي يا علي
يا علي هاي علي يا علي هاي علي يا علي هاي علي. Everyone together. يا علي هاي علي يا علي هاي علي. Louder. يا علي هاي علي يا علي. یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا شاہ خیبر گیر کا. یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا. یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا شاہ خیبر گیر کا. یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا. یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا شاہ خیبر گیر کا. یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا. آج بابا مر گیا ہے شبر و شبیر کا. یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا. یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا شاہ خیبر گیر. یہ جنازہ بلند آواز سے. یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا شاہ خیبر گیر کا. یہ جنازہ کا فاطمہ زہرا کے مرقد سے صدا آنے لگی. سے صدا آنے لگی. یہ مصائب رہ گیا تھا کیا میری تقدیر کا. یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا. یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا شاہ خیبر گیر کا. یہ ماشاءاللہ. یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا شاہ خیبر گیر کا. یہ کیوں چلائی تیغ حیدر پر بن ملجم بتا. ہائے بن ملجم بتا. کیوں چلائی تیغ حیدر پر بن ملجم بتا. اے بن ملجم بتا. قتل قرآن کر دیا کاٹا گلا تفسیر کا. یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا. یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا شاہ خیبر گیر کا. یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا. یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا شاہ خیبر گیر کا. غم علی کی بیٹیوں کے پھر سے تازہ ہو گئے. پھر سے تازہ ہو گئے. غم ابھی بھولی کہاں تھی مادر دلگیر کا. یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا. یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا شاہ خیبر گیر کا. یہ جنازہ آخری بار بلند آواز سے. یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا شاہ خیبر گیر کا. یہ جنازہ ہے. جزاکم اللہ خیر. بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات. توجہ زیارہ. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا نبي الله. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى. السلام عليك يا حسين الشهيد بكربلاء. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين، خصوصا سيدي أبا الفضل العباس، جميعا شهداء كربلاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان، الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك، وجعلنا من أنصارك وأعوانك ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه. Everyone together. في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتئه فيها طويلا. صل على محمد وآل محمد.